Alrighty, here we are. All right, let me start the audio here, and we'll get going here. All right, hey, what's going on, everyone? Back for another one. Been taking a little bit of a break for a month or so. Had a vacation and a couple other things. A couple actually, fingers crossed, some exciting things happening. Um, Not gonna mention them yet, but a few ongoing things are happening right now uh, for for me. So um, hopefully I'll know a few things better. Actually, I was hoping yesterday I would know, but we are not there quite yet. So let me turn this off. Yeah, let me turn that off so I don't get the sounds coming up there. Get the email, everything off. So so hope everyone's doing well, and wanted to actually discuss today the I was listening to I think it was a podcast on I've been doing a lot of with vacation, a couple other things going on. I've been doing a lot of driving in the car, going different places, and listening to some different podcasts. And I think I'm trying to remember what I was listening to specifically. I believe it was maybe a real estate podcast or something, but they were talking about the idea of freedom. And not the idea of freedom, not like, like constitutional freedom or anything like that, or, but more of freedom in a business sense. And that when the idea of freedom that was discussed here was that somebody who has a job thinks that there's believes there's freedom there because they have a consistent paycheck. And I do see things like that with I run into this with the having a business. And few what was it, about when we buy our house 8 years ago, I guess. And the thing I always found funny about kind of applying for a loan or a mortgage, when when you have a business versus when you have a job, and I've been in that situation in both cases, is that the banks see somebody who has a job and a consistent paycheck as stable. Well, and not, but as a business owner, I feel that I mean, and let me just go back to, as somebody who got laid off from their job. um, I never see having a job as being stable, because at any point that employer can fire or lay you off, and there's no stability or control really over that. I mean, yeah, obviously you have control in terms of you do a good job and all of that, and you can be potentially, you can be valuable to that company. But really it does come down to, like, the day I got laid off, I didn't I didn't know I was going in. I was just doing my job. I was doing, was working on projects. I had a lot of um responsibilities uh and whatnot at that firm. And then, and heck, even my boss at the time, he basically was saying, yeah, you do a good job, blah blah blah. I know I've talked about this before on another episode, but it's like, hey, you're doing a good job. You're very, you're one of the best at this and that and blah, blah, blah. We're very happy with you, but it may come to a surprise that we're letting you go today. I mean, that was pretty much verbatim to what was said to me. So, and, obviously I was pretty shocked at the time. So basically it's like, from that experience, I'm always like, well, I can at any, if I was working at a job, sorry for anyone watching the camera, but there is a hair, sorry, in front of and I could see it as I'm looking at the camera. Um, and another one. Wow, what is going on here? Hold on. I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. It was stuck in the side of the lens. The but yeah, you know, there was just, you know, just a big surprise. And, it can happen at any time. So I don't necessarily see that as being um as stable as running a business. I think running a business can be more volatile, especially for let's just say personal finance side of it, because I pay myself, but I don't necessarily pay myself the same all the time. It all depends on the ebbs and flows of the business, or actually more the ebbs and flows of receivables, because I do have situations where um, some of my receivables are, it takes 90 days to get paid or something like that. So I may be doing a bunch of work, but I'm not necessarily getting paid for it right away. Um, so there are a little bit of ebbs and flows, but I think, over a year's time, those things average out. But I also have the control of, I'm never looking for, waiting for that annual review to get a raise. I'm controlling that on a day-to-day basis and seeing like, okay, well, I'm not making enough money. So what can I do to make more money? Well, I can do this. I can change efficiencies within my processes. I can, try to get more work. I can, take some efforts on marketing. There's different steps where I can control the level of money that is that I can potentially make. I think much better than, working for a job and having a salary. I mean, obviously there's jobs where salaries are 6, 7 figures, and yeah, that's great and all, but there's a little bit more control as a business owner, I feel, than than if you have a job. So to get back to the podcast I was listening to, they were looking at, people, they were saying something in the regards of like people are in love with freedom, and that freedom was that consistent paycheck, that I'm just going to say that comfort lifestyle. And I found that to be a very interesting point. And I also started thinking, I'm like, well, have I been operating the business in that way as well? Where I will admit that, as I do look at, the profit and profit loss, in every month, and setting financial goals like, okay, for this year I want to make X amount of dollars, so I need to get this much of business, and it helps with planning and all that. But I've realized, and I forget, a few episodes ago, I may have been talking about, when it comes, it's funny when I've had years in the past, as I'm growing the business, where I'm like, hey, I want to make X amount of money, X amount of dollars this year. Um, you know, and I wasn't necessarily, I was growing the firm, and I wasn't necessarily getting to that point. And the funny thing, it was like a switch. There was a switch where it was like, okay, now, the past couple years, even with like COVID and stuff like that, that I've been hitting those marks and getting there, and it's been a strange phenomenon for me, because it was almost just like, as I was trying to get to that goal and make that certain amount, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's step one, and then I want to grow further. I want to make, if I want to make, you know, so for example, okay, working on my own, I want to make $150,000 in revenue. Okay, I've done that now. I've accomplished that. Okay, well, now I want to make $300,000 in revenue. Okay, what are the steps? Oh, I got to do this and that, and realize that, in order to get to 300,000, I got to build a team, and da 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 da. And that doesn't necessarily, one of the things I've realized is, okay, that doesn't necessarily work for me. Is wanting to build a team. Like, I feel that I'm to the point now where I would rather just work independently. Almost, I always, it's funny, and I had talked that there's been a couple episodes where this book, Company of One, that I had read recently, that I'm like, as a sole, a sole practitioner, one of the things I want to do is I want to actually get smaller. And like, how do you get smaller as a solo practitioner? But I think the one of the steps that I'm kind of going through now is, it's like, it's all mental. It's all right here in the head, that I've always thought I was thinking in the past because I wanted in this kind of growth mindset that I want to get bigger and bigger, and I had these steps and that I was going to take and bring people in and do this and do that. But it's like I'm finding that I'm like, no, that's actually not. I guess I want to kind of stay on this freedom topic. That was the idea. Actually, the idea of freedom in that case was that as I grow, I can start, um, you know, giving responsibility to other people that frees up my time. And am I in love with what I do, or if I'm or am I, working to this goal to be in love with having that freedom of not having to do the project work or whatnot. Or is it really freedom though? Because it's like, okay, it frees me up, from not doing, project work is one of the great examples here. The, you know, grow to a certain point, okay, I hire somebody. Okay, who do I hire? Well, I want to hire whether it's a project manager or somebody to work on the project. So in my case, to do draft up the drawings or do the modeling work and all of that. Um, the systems that I have in place for that, I'm finding it actually is more efficient right at this point right now to still do the work myself, because in order to direct someone to do the modeling work, it requires my time to either sit down with that individual and go over and say, hey, we need to do steps ABC, blah, 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 blah. Or I have to mark up drawings and give them to that. But the systems are so efficient internally that I would be spending more time um doing the giving the directions than if I did the work myself. I know that doesn't necessarily sound efficient to an outsider, um, but and there definitely could be an argument to be made that those steps, as there is some upfront time that you do have to spend to train somebody, but the in my mind, it doesn't even get to that point. Like, even if somebody's trained, that there's still more and more of my time will need to be spent still in that realm of directing, that it doesn't it doesn't necessarily free me up in the long run for what I want to accomplish. Um, it actually kind of slows me down, because there's also that financial part, and that, of paying somebody and whatnot, that doesn't it doesn't it's kind of a there's a it's a short-term solution to go that route, but it's not a long-term solution that I'm noticing, because the money, so basically the effort there for me, and this is for me, this is not necessarily for everyone. And I know that there's others who may be listening to this who do not agree with me at all on this. But the effort for me, um, is not worth it. Is where I'm getting at here. The money spent to get to that point, again, is not worth it. It actually, it for me, it's just slowing me. It's actually slowing me down. And I think, so realizing that it's a short-term solution for me makes me realize that taking the path of actually not hiring somebody is better for me, but keeping the options open of outsourcing is still a resource in this case. And outsourcing does provide that short term solution. And that short-term solution would be in certain situations. Like right now, I'm kind of teetering to the point where I'm like, I have enough work, but maybe I have too much work. But I'm finding that I'm being able to manage it at the moment and manage it in a way that what I'm finding is that um, the management is happening in terms of managing the expectations for my clients. So basically, like, in the past week or so, I've had about 2 or 3 projects where I'm working on the designs with the client. So there's a lot of back and forth, and we're getting to the point, 2 or 3 of these projects have gotten to the point where the designs are pretty much finalized. So now we're moving into the permit drawings. So, the question comes up of like they're asking me, okay, what's next? And I'm like, okay, well now we have to do, I have to put together a set of drawings for your zoning approval or your building approval, whatever it may be. But that's going to take me, 2 to 3 weeks to provide that, or a month and a half to provide that, depending on what the project requires. And putting on, I have a calendar right here. I'm like, okay, I'm giving clients deadlines, and I'm saying, some of these, the time it takes me to do, like, I might be saying 2 to 3 weeks or something, but the time that realistically it takes me to do is maybe like 2 days to put those drawings together. But I'm stacking up other projects, um, you know, so so just one after the other. So I got a calendar here. I'm doing all that. So then, but if that's getting to the point where it's just like, yeah, I have a current client, they're on board, and I'm like, okay, well, 3 months from now, I'll get to it, and that doesn't work for them. And there's a situation that starts getting into, okay, I got to outsource this, talk to so and so, and I'm trying to actually manage those expectations a little bit more in terms of at the beginning of a project. So like right now, I'm not accepting any new projects to start until like the end of October. Just because there's so many. And the funny thing I'm finding is that there's a number of people who are like, okay, that's fine. I have one that's like, oh, they live out of state and they're in the process of moving. They're like, that's fine. We won't be closing on our new property down in New Jersey, for another month or two. So, time is not an issue with us. Or, somebody else maybe, for a business, hey, we're still trying to work out stuff. I may not even lease this space. So, that's fine as well. Maybe by the time I settle on the space, we'll be ready to move forward with you. So there's a number of, things going on in some of these cases where time, they're not like calling me and need me to start tomorrow. And but I've been very upfront with that in the beginning, to try, again, to manage those expectations on the client side. And, to be quite honest, looking at fees and time and stuff like that, I mean, I'm probably, just with things that are on board already in my firm, I have enough work to go until I believe February or March of next year right now. So, um, and it's funny, talking about freedom, that's very freeing to me, knowing that there's that much work coming, still there. And, the other part about that is like, when we're talking about efficiencies, I'm like also looking at that. I'm like, okay, I have enough fees to last until, again, until, let's just say March of next year. Well, if I get all that stuff done by like the end of November, you know, there's more flexibility because I'm kind of, I've gotten money kind of just sitting there. And that's been a little bit of a frustration for me the past couple months. And I've kind of been trying to clean up internally some things, because I've been seeing that for a while, but I was finding myself not meeting those deadlines efficiently and enough. And that I realized, I was like, I had a month or two, like maybe June and July of this year, where I was like, okay, that the projects were on board, but I wasn't getting to the points where I was able to invoice. So I was having a receivables issue because I wasn't getting to the point where I could actually charge clients. So it was like, oh, so I got to kind of clean up that. So I'm getting a handle on that and kind of improving that. But also realizing that, identifying certain things here that come across my plate or, schedules and whatnot that I'm like, okay, well here's kind of that sign that, okay, that outsourcing thing needs to happen now, you know. Um and I know, like, actually right now I just reached out to somebody, another company just this week. Somebody contact who what did they contact me for? It was a commercial project, and definitely was a situation where it was like that situation was more of a, we want to get started right away. So, um, and it was a project that's actually very interesting to me, and I'd love to work on it. So there's a situation where I was like, um, and it was actually for a repeat client as well. So a long term. I've had this client for a very long time. So that is a situation where I'm like, yes, I would normally always say yes to this particular client, and in order to get started right away, okay, here's the steps. I've already talked to, one of my outsourcing sources. They're interested in working in as well. So, we'll see where if that moves forward. But there's a situation where it's like, here's a long-term client of mine that I always, they they give me a call, I'm gonna say yes to them. Um, and so there's a situation where I'm like, okay, yes, I need to, but I need that's I have no way of right now knowing, they could, if they're gonna call me tomorrow, or if the next time they're gonna call me for a new project is 6 months from now. So that's a situation where outsourcing does seem to work, but not necessarily bringing somebody in full time, spending a lot of money, spending training time, spending my own time on that just doesn't necessarily fit my direction. But again, that's just to get back to this discussion about the freedom is, um I've, again, trying to operate and thinking that, okay, well, I need to get to the point where I can create my own freedom and have that consistent, I'll consistently be able to make money, because I've got employees now, and that money is always going to be coming in. And that is, I'm finding that there's a different type of freedom that I've really been looking for. I haven't been looking for that quote unquote freedom. And yeah, so those are just some thoughts I've had about that. And hey, let me know if you have any thoughts of your own on that. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I actually have to get going because I got a nail sitting in my tire. I gotta go get my car looked at for an issue. But yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of jump on here and do a quick one today, and get back here on the mic, and go from there. So hope everyone's doing well, and yeah, until next time, Rich the Architect signing off. We'll see you.